Okay. It's my pleasure to have Professor Oscamou. Maribeth Oscamou is a professor in the computer science department, and she uses Gradescope extensively in her classes. And she's going to tell us a little bit about how to be a power user and some of the uses for Gradescope that I was fascinated to find out about from Maribeth. So this the rest of it's going to be an informal show and tell. Maribeth's going to show you a little bit of what she can do for her class, what are the advantages, and get into a little bit on the logistics of how to get this all set up. But then, for further details, we'll have Maribeth's email right here, and you should be able to contact Maribeth or contact me to find out how you can achieve this in your class. So Maribeth, tell us a little bit more about how Gradescope has been helpful for you and how you've been using it.
Yeah, so thanks, Sriram. I actually started out using Gradescope when I was teaching in applied math in early 2020, and it was kind of fortuitous because I made my whole team switch to Gradescope, and then everything shut down and everybody in our department had to switch to it. So I learned quickly that semester all the benefits. We were using it for exams, grading, and homework grading, and it was really nice, not only in terms of just logistics, but also in ensuring consistency when you have groups of TAs grading, because you have a very clear rubric. It's very clear to understand what students did right or wrong. And it's also very easy for submitting regrade requests from students. It's like a clear workflow in terms of the organizational side, but I also felt like it was a benefit for students in terms of consistency.
Yeah.
So I've continued using it now, and I've moved to the computer science department, and now I use it exclusively in my classes. So it's for all homework, quizzes, exams, and now I've incorporated programming assignments because Gradescope can handle that as well.
Yeah, so a lot of us use Gradescope, and one thing I found really fascinating about Gradescope is how uncluttered my office has become since I started using Gradescope. No more paper exams. Any kind of paper assignments lying around. My TAs scan all of them up to Gradescope, and students don't have to come to my office looking for their exams. I don't have to distribute these big exams up in the class and create a mess, which is very questionable for FERPA practices because students can see each other's grades that way. Right. So I found so many great uses of Gradescope, but I'm really fascinated by how you're using Gradescope in your class when you're teaching it for a really large number of students. So tell us more about the programming assignments.
Yeah, so I'm actually just going to screen share my current class just so you can get some ideas of how it's set up. I'm just going right to my Gradescope screen in my class, but this is linked directly from my Canvas site as well, which let me just stop for a second and make sure that my Canvas, it's just on the homepage. So on my Canvas site, we'll come back here. So this is my Canvas site for my current class, and it just integrates right with Gradescope. So if you click right on it, it'll take you to Gradescope, and students go this way as well. And so this is where they will upload all of their work and where they can see all of their feedback. So when we talk about students wanting to get feedback, understanding what they need to improve on, it's all documented really well on here. Currently, these are open assignments that students haven't submitted yet, but I'm going to pop you into a couple of them just to give you a sense of what it looks like for assignments that students have submitted. So I know programming is somewhat of a unique niche. So I will start with that one, but then I can go to more general cases because it works in general for any types of assignments. But I basically have split up my homework assignments into auto-graded and manually graded pieces. So each homework assignment will have a PDF portion that they upload. So I'm just clicking on that so they can see. And basically in my, that is not the PDF part that I wanted to show. Let's go back here. Basically in what they upload, I'll show you a student here. It has the output from a Jupyter notebook, but it's part of the questions that I can't grade automatically. They're questions that I want my graders to go through and actually check that they did the code correctly or check that they created plots correctly. And so these are ones that can get uploaded as just a PDF, and then my graders can go through and grade these questions. So what it'll look like from a grader standpoint again, this is still a programming assignment, but the parts that I want manually graded. They can go and say, let's say I want to grade submissions for question 1.2. I'm going to start on the first student. And then we've created a detailed rubric here that gives all the points and for what they needed to do. So there was a certain number of samples and these things. And my graders can go through and click any combination of these about what needed to be output in this problem. And then you go to next and it'll take you to the next student, same question, and they can do the same thing.
So let me ask you a question right there. Do you create these rubrics up front, or do you think it's better to do them as you're grading? What are your thoughts on that?
Good question. The way I have it set up currently is I have my course managers create the rubric up front. I meet with the graders. We go through the rubric before the students have turned in their homework. And then as the graders are grading, we communicate on Slack if they need to make updates to the rubric that they're not sure about. Because I usually like to be in the loop with certain rubric changes. And then as you have more experienced graders, sometimes once they have a rubric outline, I just let them go and they can make updates as they need to.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think one of the things I really enjoy about Gradescope is when you figure out you've taken too many points or you're being too harsh, you can make a change in one place and every student gets that change populated, and that's so much nicer. Over time, I've just appreciated that a lot.
I've used the same thing. If you go to the statistics, like you can look at the end of the grading and it'll tell you, okay, question 1, like 90 people got 95% on that one, but maybe they're missing question 4.2 for some reason, and I can see exactly why. So it'll say, okay, most people are missing because of this. And that's when I can go back and decide, okay, was it too much to take off 4 points for this, or too much to do I want to take off more points for this? And it does really give me as a teacher way more insight into why are they missing the problem? Is it that they're missing, this piece or this piece? And then I can go back and readjust in my teaching as well.
Yeah. So the other thing I noticed you were doing is you actually have assignments as Jupyter notebooks, which seems to be very, very popular in a lot of engineering classes. And you said you had the PDF portion of the Jupyter notebook. So you just provide a Jupyter notebook and the students upload it both as a PDF and as a Jupyter notebook, right?
So good question. Yeah, what happens, and I can actually, let me stop sharing real quick while I pull that up. This is a really nice integrative, if you want to do Jupyter notebooks and integrate it with auto grading in Gradescope, UC Berkeley has created a module that interacts with Jupyter notebooks that will do this auto grading. And so I'll show you what one of my homework assignment looks like and how it outputs at the end. It'll output a PDF of what I want manually graded, and then it'll output a zip file of what I want auto graded. And so students then upload both of those and they then get graded. Do you want to see the Jupyter notebook piece now, or do you want to see what it looks like from the auto graded side on Gradescope next?
Yeah, whichever one you think is the best for our presentation here.
Okay, I think I'll stick with the Gradescope one just for a second while we're still on that one. So I think we were looking at the manually graded. If I go to the auto graded, students are submitting a zip file here, and it'll automatically, this is the Python library called Otter that's available that you can use, and it'll automatically auto grade built-in test cases that I have built into the notebook. And then it'll tell them at the end, like which ones they missed. So what I do, and you're allowed to set this up multiple ways, I have this set up so that when they submit, they can see their results and they can go back and fix it before the deadline. But you can also set it up such that they can't see their results till after the deadline, and it just gets scored once. I find they work harder and try to actually understand it better if they realize it's wrong and they want to go back and figure out why, rather than if I just give them one try and then later they realize, oh, I missed 6 on the homework. They rarely go back, in my experience. They rarely go back after it's been turned in to fix it. So I usually leave it open and allow them to fix until the deadline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But the students could have run Otter themselves, or they could have run their notebook themselves and they would know that
No,
this is
they
program.
wouldn't have known until they have to
Ah,
upload it to here, because I've configured the auto grader so it's all part of and actually I can show in this piece,
excuse me.
it's all part of a certain type of assignment. When you want to make a new assignment, you go to create assignments. It's part of the programming assignment
Ah,
option. And so when
okay.
you do that, you get to decide, you know, your name and how many auto grader points in your basics. I'll just say, just to show you what it's doing. Let's say it's out of 10 points and I'm releasing it and there's a due date. Then you decide which sections you want to apply it to. And then when you go to create it, you then have to configure the auto grader. And so they have a lot of guidelines. It's not just Jupyter Notebooks that'll do this for, but that's how I have it set up. And so I have a zip file that gets output from each homework that I create that I upload into here.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, and then it configures and it's all ready. It's been really amazing. And what students have liked, I will say, is that they get this immediate feedback on the coding side as well. They're not waiting, you know, for a week. When they submit it, they can see if their tests have passed or not.
Oh, that's really great. And so this allows us to do things beyond Jupyter Notebooks, or is it just okay?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that the auto grader or that the this sets up or what you can use it for, but I've so far only done it with Jupyter Notebooks.
Interesting. So for a really large class, this is actually worth investigating further. If you're working in an environment which can allow you to auto grade, this is really worth investigating further. How to set this up, how to and it really pays off dividends over multiple semesters.
Yes, that's what I found.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just been really happy with the fact that I could combine both auto-graded and manually graded assignments. Because you can see, I think the one I wanted to show, yeah, I had homework too, just to show you an example, that it does great with more mathematical questions as well. So let me look at the one I wanted here. This was the outline I picked. Oops. I was setting up the outline for this, but let me do it with a different one. Yeah, I do give them actual questions where they have to do more about, yeah, here's what I wanted to show, question 3B. So this, let me show you what it looked like in my rubric and then in the grading, because my class is a combination of code and theory. And so I had found it had been hard to grade both, and this gave me the option for both very nicely. If I go to 3B here and go to grade, so when I go to do this, you have two options on when you're grading. You can do basically this AI assisted grading, which I'll show in a minute. But when you know you have more manually graded things, you just go one by one, and it'll take you directly to the student's work. So this is the output from their Jupyter Notebook. I have them doing this in LaTeX in the notebook, but they're writing up their math. But it also works on their exams when they do handwritten things, which I'll show in a minute. And I just like that, you can use math notation in here. So you can use LaTeX to write things, and I can be very specific about what it is. And if I wanted to add something even more, so right now, usually I try to have my grader stick with one of these so it's clear for students. But you can also double click and write specific comments and say, like, this is exactly where it went wrong, or this is exactly where the issue is. And students will then, I've set mine up so that they only see the rubric items that are applicable to them. And so in this setup, if someone got it correct, they would see this full solution and then they'd see that theirs was correct. But let's say they had also missed, you know, this and this, they would just see the two boxes they missed it as well as the full solution.
Yeah.
And so I find I get way less questions. Students are very clear at the end of the day why they miss things, and then they can go back to this. It's online. Like when they're studying for exams, it's very easy for them to go back and say, oh, okay, wait, why did I miss this? And their view, this actually has a nice view for them. Let me see if I can, I think if you go to review grades, yeah, I can look at download the graded copy. So this is what students can also download if they want. Might take a minute here. Yeah. And then again, this will tell them what they did right or wrong. And then again, it would say missing or incorrect interpretation. Now these, because it has the pictures, it's not outloading up, it's not putting the pictures with them, but it will show them what they did right or wrong, and they can go back into the online version to see the exact correct solution.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, what I liked is the combo, because this is all one assignment that has code and math, but I can grade both of them. And then my graders are not spending a bunch of wasted time on things that can be automatically graded as well.
Yeah.
So the other piece, and I can go into the Jupyter Notebook in a minute, but the other piece that's helpful is I want to show some exam and quizzes, because this is where they're doing this on paper, and then my graders are scanning these in. And I actually set this one up where I've graded this, but I've set it up so I deleted a couple of them, and we're going to regrade it together to show you how nice this is. When you have a templated version like this, where I know that everyone's going to get this quiz, you can set it up in advance to say exactly where their solutions are going to be. This quiz, I basically had multiple choice, and so I'm going to add a new one for 3A just to show you how this works, because then we'll grade it. 3A is 3 points, and then 3B, let's add that one for 3 points. So what's nice about this is I had both a multiple choice and a fill in the blank kind of option. You can also, have just general math questions that are not going to be auto graded, that your graders are going to go through and look line by line. But here I'm just showing, if I added these two in, 3A, 3B, save it. Now I can go through and grade these. So let's go grade, and it's showing me that I haven't graded 3A or 3B at all. Everything else has been graded. If I want to do it using the AI, instead of clicking right next to it on submissions, you click on the actual number. So it's a subtle difference, but this is now going to allow you to say, how do you want to grade this question? And if you grade individually, then it's not going to use any of its built-in AI. But if you want it to try to read and form the answer groups first, you can. And you can explain whether or not it's multiple choice, fill in the blank, or text. So this one would be multiple choice. And then it's going to go through and try to group them. And then I get to
fascinating
review these. Yeah. And so it's really nice. This is really helpful, because now, and I'm going to have to confirm them, right? But basically, if I go review the first group, this is everybody that selected, that they believe selected these first three.
I see. So it's everyone who's selected answers 2 and 4.
Yes, 2 and 4. Although some of them are getting double. Let's see. Let me preview this one. This one is selecting. Wait.
I think it's the box that you placed, but
oh, did I do it in the wrong spot? Let me look.
Yeah, I think the box kind of runs.
Oh, I know what happened. Yeah. I put 3A. I see. Thank you. Well, this is good.
Sorry.
This is good learning. Okay. Here we go. 3A. And how do I know that? Because this is the 3A here, and this is supposed to be 3E here. And these are things that can definitely show up during grading. And what's nice is you can fix it quickly, redo it, and then it'll reassess. Yeah. And so what was already making me nervous about that, or what was making me suspicious, was that it had so many answer groups. It was seeming like something was off in how it was doing it.
I think that's a great check to see whether you have done things right, because you should probably have a few answer groups, not too many.
Correct. And so now I'm doing it again, because now I went back to question 3, and now it's processing them again. It's going to take a minute. But what's nice, see, now we've got 4 groups. So now this is already telling me this is looking better. It's going to.
Perfect.
Again. And so these are the other pieces that I like, is it's got nice guardrails for when graders are not paying attention, or if I'm off, that you can quickly redirect yourself. Now, the other piece is that this one, sometimes it is tricky to see in the way they bubble things in, right? Students will do stuff like this, where they'll bubble one and then they'll be like, nope, this one. And it was actually pretty good at recognizing that it was choosing the third, because this group in theory is supposed to be all, let's see, how is it not? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. This group is supposed to be the third in each. And so you do eyeball these. I eyeball them once they've been checked, like for things like this, to make sure, did the student really choose the third one? Yep, they did. They erased the top one. And then once I think that I have everybody that chose the third, which is the correct answer in this case, you can kind of zoom down, zoom down, zoom down. And sometimes I'll have to move these, like, right, I'm not sure if this person really picked it. So let me see if that was right. Yeah, they erased. And then once I've decided, yeah, this looks good, I can then go to my next group. And if I only have one answer that's correct, I can merge all the other ones. So I can just say there's this group, and then let's merge these other ones because these ones are all wrong and there's no other partial credit. Depends on how I want to grade them.
Wow, okay.
And so then let's say that these are now my correct. So I'll just say the incorrect options. Now, when I go, that's just confirming that those are all still incorrect. If there's any that don't fit into your categories, they'll leave them here and you're just going to do them manually. And then when you go to grade, I'm just going to grade once. So I'm just grading group 1 right now. And I'm saying
I see. And you provide
correct.
them the points, the right, and the comments if needed. I see. Wow.
Yes. Yes. And then I can go to the next ungraded. So I'm grading group 2 and I would say incorrect and then say what the correct answer is. And I can say minus if this was all or nothing, right?
Perfect. Wow.
And then they're done. Then I'm now done with that question. So it's pretty concise and nice for multiple choice. Now, what's cool is it'll do this for fill in the blank also. So here's 3B, which was a fill in the blank, and it's going through and trying to read these. And so if I want to do form answer groups first, I can say math fill in the blank, and it's going to do its best to try to group them. And it's pretty good if it's just a single answer.
Wow.
And sometimes I prefer to do fill in the blank rather than giving them something to guess from, because I can test if students really have any idea what's happening. Yeah, and so here, right, it's got a bunch of them, and then I can go and say, well, let me merge these ones that I know are the same, like that's the same with that one, I can put them all together before and then I can merge the other ones with incorrect, and I can do the same idea.
Wow.
So it's very quick for those ones. And something that I found also extremely helpful is I will often do questions like this where I will have them put their final answer in a box, but then I will ask for work, to show their reasoning. And I can use this if I set up my rubric such like this, where I just focus on their final answer first. Then I can go back, it'll sort them based on their groups. So it'll make groups of like all correct or incorrect. Then I can go back to the outline, and let's say I wanted to see the work associated with this. I can then do this and grade individually, like go one by one, but they're all in order. So I have a whole group that I know did it right, and I'm just scanning quickly. And then I have a whole group that it all got the wrong answer, the same wrong answer. And so I'm just way more consistent when I'm checking.
So you just to confirm what you just did is you group them based on that small box, but then based on those groups, now you expanded that box, and now you're going to grade them individually, but then you're getting similar answers, and that really speeds you up.
Yes. And it helps my consistency too, right? So I did this on a most recent exam where they gave their answers in multiple choice, but then I required them to give their reasoning, and I made sure I was way more consistent with, the wrong multiple choice and XYZ reasoning.
That's fascinating. And remembering from 10 years ago when we taught classes with 200, 250 students, and we had these final exams on paper, the amount of time that we used to spend grading these final exams, we had to buy pizza, spend the evening, spend the next morning, and what this really helps us here is you could still give them the paper exams. You don't have to sacrifice and give them multiple choice questions or dumb down your exam, so to speak, but you still have all the help you need to get it graded really fast. Everything you showed me is just hours of time compressed into a click of and that's fascinating, and that's so useful.
And along those lines, I find exactly what you're saying is you can divide and conquer so much easier rather than everyone having to be there to physically use the same paper, right? Like I can just assign grader A, you're going to do question 1, grader B, you're going to do question 2, do it by a certain time frame. They're all, it's all really easy to track on here, and they're not dependent on getting an actual physical exam from another student.
So let
The
me
other,
ask you the multiple versions. I'm guessing you were going to show us that.
that was exactly where I was going to go. So this is a new feature that I've loved. And the way this works, it's actually very easy to set up, but you make multiple, once you've made multiple assignments in the assignments tab, you can then, let's see, that one says organize exam. Yeah, there we go. So organize multiple versions. And so this is where you can then assign, once you've made an assignment, you can assign it to a set. Why this is helpful is because this syncs directly to Gradescope. So every time I finish, I like finish grading the quiz, then I can post grades to Canvas, or this syncs directly to Canvas, excuse me. I can post grades to Canvas. And when you do that, it'll then say, oh, okay, there's no grades to post, or that's because I was trying to regrade this and we didn't finish your grade. Or it'll say, what assignment in Canvas do you want me to sync it to? So let me go to this one and show that. Post all grades to Canvas. It says it's linked to an assignment in Canvas named Midterm 2. I set that up in my settings when I first created this.
So you set
this
it up.
assignment. Yeah, so you can then, this is the template, but then I can say I can link it. I actually have to link it when it's grouped. So let me come back. You set them up individually, and then you do that grouped piece. And then in settings, you can then link it to Canvas. So what's nice about that is that it's not that you have to create two separate assignments in Canvas to account for version 1 and version 2, and then certain students are getting empty grades. It's all going in as one assignment. It's just contained in Gradescope this way, and they'll make sure that you don't have a student that's in both. So Gradescope wouldn't allow me to upload
multiple grades for the same student.
Right. And that's actually a whole other side that's super useful. I'm sure that you've seen when you are actually trying to manage submissions. It has a whole auto match where it tries to match their name automatically to people in the list. So when you upload scanned versions of your exam, it'll go through and automatically try to match them. And then you can manually match anyone else that's missing. But
one thing that I've been doing, I mean, one mistake I made in the past is to allow them to write their names everywhere. But it really helps to have in your exam to have a nice box and tell them, do not write the name outside the box. Please write the name inside the box. Yeah, that really helps.
Yeah, I have found that's exactly what I do. You'll see on all my quizzes and exams, they all have the exact same structure and they have to put their name. I have them do their student ID as a backup in case I can't read their name. But typically we just, Gradescope just uses the name to match it. And that's been my savior. And yeah, that's the one place they do it. And that's where Gradescope looks. So it's really easy to find.
Yeah. No, this is very, very useful to see how you're doing it at scale for a large class and not having to spend a lot of time doing this. I found that the amount of time I've invested in learning about Gradescope has really paid off. For example, the multiple versions of the exam, we actually had to do zeros for some of the students who didn't get that version of the exam. So then that caused a lot of confusion for students. And in a large class, any kind of confusion, if you let it get out of hand, is not something that you want.
Scalable.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I have loved this piece because they, in their view, they only see they don't see both a student's version. They just see whatever one they showed up in. It just shows up under exam 2, their assignment. So they wouldn't even know how many versions I have. Theirs just shows up under that assignment here. The other piece I really liked is the regrade request, because this has also helped me streamline a lot of emails and back and forth that'll happen, because you can set exactly the time frame. So you can set the settings and decide like how long are you going to allow them to be open. And then when the student has a regrade, they have to be very specific. It'll actually be attached to a specific question. It'll take you right to the question and it'll say, can I get the points back for this because I did this? And then as soon as I respond, it sends them an email with my response, updates their grade. The only last piece is I just have to resync to Canvas to make sure that if I've made a change. But if I say, no adjustment based on the rubric, it closes the regrade request. It's not still like, pending. And so it's very easy on my end to keep track of, okay, were there errors or somebody that had an issue? And I would say the other piece that's been great is it keeps track of late. I mean, I know that you can do this in many assignments, but if it's late on here. And so I tell them if it shows up as late on, oh, this one isn't due yet, so nobody's late on this one. But if it shows up as late on Gradescope, that's my cutoff. There's not like oh, I emailed you at the last second. If it didn't come in through here, and it's very clear on their end too, so they can see, and it'll mark it like this, right? So I have certain allowances for a certain number of late assignments, but students can at least see like, okay, that one was late because I didn't get it in on its time, and it's very clear for me to keep track of it too.
Yeah, no, I find that to be very useful. And one thing about regrade requests that I really appreciate is you can set a timing on like what's the last date to send a regrade request. And
Yes.
I found that's a very helpful feature in teaching large classes where you don't get a regrade request for assignment 2 at the end of the semester. There's usually a time frame for doing that, and you can really set that time frame on Gradescope, and that's really helpful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last piece, I won't click on it because it's going to show names, but when you go to roster, it has an automatic button that says sync Canvas roster. That's been so helpful as the semester's gone on because students add, drop. It changes all the time, and it continually just will sync and keep it up to date with who's actually still in the class. So I found it very streamlined and easy from my perspective. And so far it's covered all the grading needs that I've come across.
That's great. Yeah, I've been using that roster as well, and the fact that it syncs seamlessly has been so useful. So one last question I had for you was to see the Jupyter notebooks that you have set up, if it's possible. Yes.
Okay. Let me see if these are, yeah, okay. So we can restart. So this is a view of the Jupyter notebook. And again, this is a deep dive into if you wanted to use this type of grading for assignments that were a mix of coding and math and visuals. But basically on the right side of the screen is the student version. This is what the students get. After I've compiled the left side's the raw underneath the hood side that has the built-in information for how to do the auto grading. So there's a beginning kind of header you have to do based on this code, and then I'll scroll down to get you an idea of when you start a question. So what students will see, question 1.1, I'm starting here and showing here's the question, and then I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4 auto-graded tests that are built into this notebook. Students don't see all 4 of those. What happens instead is they have to put this code here. So I'm going to actually just copy it as if I were a student doing this. And let me start from the top. So the student will run this. There we go, starting from the top and run the beginning. And then let's say they're doing this and they have now written their code and they have gotten their answer to the first one. Now it's going to do grader check. In that process, it's going to run these 4 checks. This one's hidden. So what will happen is I will pass them. This will say yes. So I'm going to run it on the right. It says I passed. That's passing in the notebook. So those are the viewable ones. The students are like, yep, I'm doing a good job. This hidden one will get run when I upload it to Gradescope.
Okay.
So it allows this ability to give them an in-notebook check, but not give them the answer right away, and then check them on another part of the question when they actually upload.
I have a question here. So the tests that you have here in 4, 5, and 6 that I see on your screen to the left, the students can't see those, right? They just get to run those, but they can't see those.
They can't see them. Now, if they failed one of them, so let me try to make one fail it. Let me see. So first of all, it shouldn't be a float. Let me think of which one. It's not greater than 0. Let me have it do one that's a little bit, this might be a little bit trickier to make it fail.
Just negating the percentage, for example. Yeah.
I'm just okay. Then it'll say it failed. Now in this case, the way it's set up is they are seeing what it's expecting.
I see.
And so now there is a way around this if you don't want them to see, right? It's saying it needs to be greater than 0. It's saying it has to be between 35 and 65. So this is the way this is set up, they can kind of back end, if they weren't going to try to do the whole thing, they could probably figure out, oh, maybe I need to put a number like this and then I can get it to pass. Oh, still not, because I didn't do a float or something else. But there, right? Like it can have something wrong and showing that it's passed, but then when it goes into Gradescope, it's not going to pass.
I see. It's going to give them the feedback that one of the tests was failed. Okay.
Yeah. Now the way I have it in Gradescope myself is they see which test failed. So I leave it pretty open. They can go back and fix it, but you could again leave it until once, they don't get to see which one failed until after their points are tallied. It leaves you some options as to how much feedback you want to give them and how much needs to be graded after they submit it.
I think it's useful to play around with this, because in programming, in real life, no one gives you these test cases, and it's good to write them yourself. And so it in computer science pedagogy, there is value to have both hidden and test cases that are revealed to them, simply as a way of learning to test their own output. And I think this is true throughout engineering. Students need to learn how to test their output. Yeah.
And students have said, there's obviously a whole art that goes into what are the best tests, but when I do more of a mathy type question, I will still put a test that's basically like, okay, do you have the right final answer? But then their work has to show everything, how they get there. And students have said they really have appreciated that this semester, because they'll go try a problem, they'll try it one way and they'll plug it in and see was it right. And then if it's right, they'll spend all the time writing it up and getting it into the right form rather than wasting that time because it was wrong. So they have said they've appreciated that guidance of like, am I along the right track before I put more energy into this?
Yeah.
So it basically works like that. And then you can decide what I have here, export as true. These are the ones that are going to go into the PDF. So if there's questions like this that I want to plot, or I want to have my graders grade, and a lot of these ones, these are simulations, so not everyone's going to get the same answer. I wanted them to eyeball it and look at it and make sure it looked reasonable. Then that will get exported at the end into the PDF version. You can also still include a grading point here. So I'm going to have this exported, but also I'm going to have part of it auto-graded.
Interesting.
So I can do a combination, right, of like a questions partially manually graded and partially auto-graded. And then you can have them completely manually graded if it's like a written response. So I have, these are all saying manual is false, but once I get down to one where I have manual is true, they have to give their
right there. Right there. Previous, you just scrolled.
Yeah, there we go. And so that one on question 2.5 here, they're going to have to, right, what it'll show up here is it says type your answer here, replacing this text. And so then the students will put their student answer in detail here.
And students are given a little bit of info on how to type things in Markdown and LaTeX. So it looks nice.
Correct. The first few assignments, I have them do a lot of the questions in Markdown and LaTeX so that they know how to do it. And that way it gives them some practice. Yeah. And so then once they've gone through, it's a mix again of these manual and auto-graded ones with some grader checks along the way. Then the way this is set up at the end is, and this is all part of that Otter module built-in piece, is you can run this cell at the end. This one's going to fail all my tests.
Yes, of course. You haven't filled anything out other than the one question we saw in the beginning.
Yeah, I'll just restart and run all as if I didn't do anything and most of it was wrong. But what it'll show you is that it's going to then output at the end a PDF that has all of the ones I've marked over here as manual. So that's already ready for them to go to Gradescope. And then it separately will have a zip file that has their Jupyter notebook and the other pieces that then that's what they upload to the auto-graded Gradescope assignment. So that's basically what I have described here in there.
I see. So the students get a PDF and a zip file from that process, which are two things they upload. And I find things like this, you have problems on the first assignment, getting all the students clued in on how to do it right. And if you're okay with giving them some grace there, usually they get it by the second assignment. How to run this, and it's the advantage, then it saves you a lot of time.
Yeah, I have found students caught on really quickly. I did build in, like you said, I have late homeworks, and I built in 2 extra late homeworks that were just like 24-hour extensions for technical difficulties where they could still get full credit, but just turn it in 24 hours late. And that seemed to cover all the issues that were coming up from them learning this process. And yeah, and then once they've done it on the first one, they're like, all right, I know the steps. We'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, this has been quite fascinating, and thank you so much for talking about this. And this is such an important piece of digital education that we want to make on-campus education as seamless as possible, and really save people's effort and time when it comes to grading. So thank you so much for guiding us through Gradescope.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for all your great questions.